Hello and welcome to Getting the Future of E-Learning Right with an Intelligent Learning Platform. This session today is presented by CYPHER Learning, and with us is Alexia Sanchez. Alexia has years of experience working with organizations worldwide to help them implement effective training strategies. She takes pride in assisting clients with their onboarding process and is passionate about education transformation to improve employee achievement. So let's please welcome Alexia to the session. Alexia, if you'd like to start sharing your screen, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Melissa. I really appreciate the introduction, and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. It's great to be speaking with you all today. Thank you for taking out some time of your busy agendas and joining me. So today we will be talking about how we can get the future of e-learning right. But before that, before we move forward, I'd like to share with you just a little bit of additional background. So firstly, I identify myself as an instructional designer and program coordinator. I am an engineer by trade, which allowed me to learn about project management and as well for to have that seed of the search of continuous improvement and making processes efficient. Then I switched over to education, where I had the opportunity to experience teaching K-12 and then high school education, and then I switched over to adult education, and I developed as well professionally as a program coordinator. So my experience is an instructional designer, designing experiences. My strong advocacy is for education, but an education that it is effective and meaningful, making sure that we train, that we teach users the way that their brain works and the way that the brain is also learning. So with that, I'd like to start by talking about e-learning really quickly first and talking about how I consider e-learning. For me, e-learning is really about an industry about remaining competent and competitive as an employee. So it's really empowering the users. And right now, after the pandemic, we are really seeing an e-learning wave. Right now, we are seeing so many new trends in the e-learning industry. But this time, I really want us to take a look at e-learning under a different light as an area of opportunity. And with that, I want to share with you some really interesting statistics. And these statistics are the following. So e-learning increases retention rates by 25% all the way up to 60%. That means that when you are doing face-to-face, it is not as high as it is through e-learning. In comparison, face-to-face is about 8 to 10%. And the reason behind that is because we're offering to the learners many more moments of engagement, many more, we're making it, we're appealing to their curiosity. We also have a second one, which is e-learning typically requires 40 to 60% less employee time than in a traditional classroom setting. So this talks about as well being efficient. So, and finally, just to make sure that we're in the same line, thinking about how this industry is still in its growth peak in a product life cycle. Let's say that it is in the market, it's still not going elsewhere. The corporate e-learning market could increase by 38 billion between 2020 and 2024. So with this, what I really want to explain is that e-learning, it's not something that was forced for us to adopt because of the pandemic. It is because it is a trend that it is based out of facts that e-learning really is effective and really assists us. So with this in mind, I want to ask you something. If we're talking about how e-learning is powerful and we can do so much more with that, I'd like to ask you, what is the biggest challenge that you right now are facing working in the e-learning industry? Because there's a gap between right now all of the possibilities and as well also what it is stopping us from really maximizing what we have out there with our training programs. So Melissa, if you could please help me out with the poll. Please feel free to participate. Let us know what you think. So we have the first option, staying up to date with edtech tools, keeping learners engaged and motivated, the lack of clarity on the goals of your project, not knowing how to update or curate my programs, and finding the right LMS or authoring tool. Please go ahead and submit your answers. We're going to give a couple of seconds.
Okay, we have, it looks like the majority. So I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results. I don't think you're going to be too surprised by this, Alexia.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Melissa. So it looks like the majority of you responding that it is keeping learners engaged and motivated. And I completely understand where you're coming from, because you're coming from a place that learners know that they will have to take certain courses. It is not really appealing to that emotional engagement. So with this, thank you very much for this, Melissa. I'm going to go ahead and close this. So let's continue with here. So how is it that learners are not really engaged with our programs? And let me tell you something. This is because we're really not transferring the culture that we're living. Think about the workplace that in which we are living right now. After the pandemic, it became a flexible workplace. We have people who are working from their homes. We have people still wanting to go to the office, but it is more up to them when they want to go, or maybe remote, they want to work in other country cities, because this has opened for opportunities for your learners and your employees to really explore different options that really work the best for them. So, and the reason why people are really liking this flexible model, it is because if it's something that it is relevant to them, it is allowing them to feel fulfilled. Now, the thing is that in the e-learning field, we are not quite there, because we have been delivering the programs in the same way. This is what you are going to learn. Yes, we have a couple of offerings, go through them. So that is going to be how the past and the present of training is right now. So what we really need to do to get our learners engaged is to really appeal to something that matters for them. And the only way to do this is to set up objectives that are relevant to them. I mean, if you think about the environment, the workplace, it really became more flexible, as we mentioned before, but as well with that, it made the leaders become more receptive, and they started listening more to their employees. It was a fact of motivating more of them. So how can we transfer this into e-learning? We have to start thinking about how we can become more receptive with our employees. We have to start to reimagine and reshape what training is about, what learning and development is right now, and what it will be in the future. So I think that it is not going to be in terms of what the learner has to do, what they need to know, but to start really listening and analyzing why still they underperforming, what is missing in there. And with this, I want to also discuss another factor that I think it is affecting, and that is all of the different offerings that we have and tools out there. We always have heard all of this new incoming articles, news. What are the trends in e-learning for 2022? What are the trends for 2023? And we have lists and lists of top features, tools, and as well approaches in e-learning. We have heard about hybrid learning, blended learning, micro-learning, which is the main trend for next year, social learning, scenario-based testing, personalized analytics, gamification, and this might be overwhelming. And the thing in here is that many organizations are saying, hey, if you start using micro-learning, you will engage the learner. If you start gamifying, you will engage your learners. And I'm not saying that they don't, but I'm saying that it will to a certain extent, because some of these items are just being added into our programs. They're just being added into a different culture that you have around your learners. And these are just efforts that are going outwards. You're just adding more things, but they do not have a purpose. We really have to do, whenever we add a trend, an intention to this. I mean, most of these items were almost nearly mandatory after the pandemic. We had to adapt so many of these tools, but because we didn't have that objective, that goal, it wasn't really intuitive. It was more things that we were adding to it. So I think that we really have to plan around the needs of our learners so that they are all cohesive. It's not about just having all the bells and the whistles. I think that we have to go one step beyond it. We really have to design an experience for them. This is not longer a MOOC. This is more about talking about it, making it meaningful. If it's meaningful, it will talk to the learner and they will really use it. So the part of having all of these different trends without a purpose, I think that is another factor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite you to step a second outside of this idea, this mindset, and change the way that we are perceiving our learners, because we're no longer planning for what they need to do, but really what is it that they really need, a more personalized approach in this case. We're talking that if we really want to have a future-ready workforce, we have to go one step beyond and do a next level engagement. We have the key to really make sure that training is efficient, and that is through engagement. That is what all instructional designers are seeking always through this. So in order for us to do that, we should really start thinking about the learner, planning around their needs. And how do we do it? We do it by getting to really know our learners. Who are our learners? What is their job title? Understanding their strengths and their weaknesses to a more granular level. And this will give us a lot of more data as well, because all of these details about strengths and weaknesses are going to also affect the job. And we also have to consider the job titles. So we have to talk to the learners and try to engage them in an intrinsic way, because in an extrinsic way, they already know that they have to comply with different courses. They have to take X or Y number of courses in a year, but we also have to engage them emotionally. We know that learning does not happen if there's not an emotional engagement component. This is a more student-centered approach. And with that, we have to Think about the role of of them in the organizations, and also let them know how is it that they can help in the company. So when we're talking in a business, and something for the learner is meaningful, meaning that they know how they will impact in the organization, that is going to become a reason of motivation for them. When learners know what is it expected from them, when employees do understand what is it that we need them to do, that they are going to be able to as well have that clarity. When we're inconsistent, when there is no clarity of what is it that they're expected to do, what are the expected learning outcomes, there won't be as well an engagement, because again, we're not talking to them to the emotional engagement. So just to talk a little bit about history, and the reason why I'm going back into this is because, as they say, for an understanding of the future, we have to look to the past and let us understand how this has developed, how e-learning has developed. As in here, you'll see the timeline. So we start talking about training. This type of training started around the Second World War, and what organizations needed, it was employees to massively learn how to build things quickly. So that is where training started. And then we switched over into more about enterprise learning, about corporate universities. And this is, for example, when Ford Motors started working on training their employees, coming with different learning approaches. So then in the 1990s, we start talking about online education. So this is when everyone was already thinking about e-learning. And it was as well a massive learning. It was really trying to speed up the process. Then in the 2000s, we had more about now organizations training online, because first it was more about education, and we switched over more into the business training industry. In 2008, we started talking about MOOCs, which is more, again, geared towards masses. But then during the pandemic, we realized that this learning wasn't really effective, that this approach wasn't really getting us closer to learners really taking in all that information. And we start talking about LXPs, which are the learning experience platforms. And we start talking about how you can do it a more personalized experience for the learners, talking about how you can offer different courses and not give them everything, basically what they have to learn. So now you're giving a little bit of freedom to the learner. But these all versions of learning and development really do not talk about the main problem, which is solving the challenge of a personalized skill development plan. And this is all with the idea of making it more impactful for the learners. Because at the end of the day, if you look at this timeline, you'll see that the constant in here, it is about being responsive to what we needed. So right now in our community, in our world, we need to be more responsive, but we have learned that we're giving people more flexibility, that they are unique human beings. So I want to go in a little bit deep into an LXP, LMS, and IOP, just so that I don't lose you over here. So I'm going to go real quickly over this different concepts. So let's start with an LMS, a learning management system. Its objective was to assign and quantify compliance. It was basically allowing organizations to see what their learners had completed. And it was more about a structured training. It was you are going to go through X, Y, and Z courses. So the learning and development approach was more prescriptive. Then it changed about also the content type. It was more predetermined, PDFs, documents. It wasn't that interactive. And the search, well, basically, there was not a lot of room for search. It was learners, they get to see what they were assigned to. And I call it the wow factor. This is what it changed in the industry. And this was basically having learning online with different features. Then you can think about LXP and 4 years ago, starting really, and its objective was to do a continuous learning. So then you start talking about the part of motivating learners, and that they do it through a personalized, a professional development path, and as well as offering different courses, different options to the learners. So their learning and development approach, we're talking about it being more personalized and flexible. And this is also flexible because of integrations. So you're talking about LTI compliant tools being integrated in here as well. And we're also now talking about search features, allowing for learners to search for content whenever they need it. And the wow factor for some LXPs is the AI component, but especially the content discovery. Now we have the ILP, Intelligent Learning Platform, which allows you to have a structured learning for those organizations who need it, or maybe for the compulsory courses, but you also have the personalized and continuous learning experience part, which will allow you to have more flexibility for your learners. And the learning and development approach is based on sharing personalized recommendations to your learners. This is the part where the platform will assist you. The content type, it varies. It has a wide array of options. So you can have predetermined formats, but you also have integrations, and you have many more authoring tools. The search is also going to be tagged, and it is going to be based off tags, and it is going to allow learners to look for what they're looking, that they are going to be needing in their jobs. And the wow factor, well, we have a couple of here. We have artificial intelligence assisted, we have Alexa, we have VR and AR. So after explaining this, I really think that if we're trying to tap into that true intrinsic engagement, and with the help of an intelligent learning platform, we would be talking about having the future of e-learning in a place where we can provide tools, resources, and skills and goals to your employees. It's not only content. Now it becomes, it's going to open up to tools, resources, skills, so that they can really solve their daily on-the-job tasks and challenges, meaning that it is more like a just-in-time approach in training. If you can think about it like this, when you are working, when you are requested to do something and you need a resource, you're not going to go back into the course and click all the way into the content to get that resource that you need. You want some searchability, and you want to make sure that you have access to the documents that you need in that moment, because we're going to use the reference. Learning, it's not longer about memorizing things. It's more about knowing how to get them, becoming resourceful. And we have to facilitate things for our learners. Also, I am foreseeing that the learning is going to be within the flow of work and the learner's needs and interests, because there's no point for our learners to learn as many courses as they can, but it is more about being effective. If we want our employees to really perform well and even continue to grow, we need to give them that opportunity for them to really have access to what they need, and as well to something that it is appealing to them. Additionally, we're also talking about self-directed learning with the help of recommendations based on interest and professional development goals. It is giving them autonomy to your learners. It is going to be relevant as well, but we're going to also consider the part of mentoring, giving feedback, because we're also cannot forget that human approach as well into training. So what is this about AI? I've been talking about how LXPs and intelligent learning platforms have artificial intelligence. I'm sure that you have heard it in many places. What is it about artificial intelligence? Well, let's just, for a quick example, let's just take a look at Facebook. In Facebook, we have the face recognition. And as soon as you upload a picture, it will already suggest you who to tag. You have as well Siri, who understands what you're saying, or as well Alexa. And Netflix as well, they are offering you recommendations of movies, and they even add the percentage in there. So all of this is part of artificial intelligence. We're talking about narrow AI because it focuses on one job itself, and it requires as well certain type of input. So for example, in this case, in Netflix, you selecting thumbs up, thumbs down in a movie, that is giving data to Netflix to understand what you like and what you don't like about the different movies that you're selecting for the series. So AI is allowing us to really transform the way that humans act, in the sense of our shopping experience is now different. Take a look at Amazon. Amazon is also utilizing AI so that it really recommends things that can be relevant to your needs. So the way that we are living right now, it's changing. We are being recommended by platforms, by systems, things that they might really drive our attention. We're changing how we shop, how we select things, what we watch based on this. So AI is going to really retrieve data from what we're doing, and it is going to identify algorithms so that it can then get to know the user. So AI is really important right now, and it's going to be a huge trend everywhere because it's really allowing and enabling the part of personalizing experiences. So this is going to allow us to have a better engagement, take us to that future ready workforce, because we're going to really engage our learners. These are all going to allow you to get to know your employees, your learners. So, and it will continuously collect data to make better recommendations. And what I'm saying is that the platform is going to assist you better in your designs, in your training and development designs, as well as how you deliver them. And this is all going to be an assistant, because it's going to help you as well identify learning gaps and really make learning be delivered as needed. So therefore, this is allowing us to be more responsive as well as a business. Because what it will actually do is that it will automatically curate the courses that are being recommended. So taking this example into applying it into an ILP, we're talking about recommendations. Just as Netflix recommends, we are also going to be able to do this. And we're going to recommend courses, groups, even people who to talk to, so you can do some networking as well. So all of this is going to make learning become more interactive. We're switching from a passive learning into a really continuous and active learning. Right now, what I'm showing you is just a screenshot of the recommendations. And the platform can show you over here what are the different courses and items that you should consider and why. How is this relevant to a goal? Goals in here are very important because goals can be not only courses, but also job titles. What if I'm a I'm a salesman and I want to become a sales manager? So this is going to be selected by also the learners. And for them, as a user right now, the trend is we also want to get a win-win with the organizations. We also want to take out some learning and professional development as well in here. So what we really want to do is to provide a real personalized learning experience that it is going to make learning consistent and relevant for the learners so that they can really get to that professional development goals that they have set for themselves or that you are recommending as well. So in here, for example, you can also decide what are the different things that you can recommend. If you want to open that network, if you want to just stick to the courses and different offerings, that is going to be something available in intelligent learning platforms. So how does AI help corporate training? So basically, it's going to help you to make better decision making. And this is because it is going to allow you to retrieve more data, and you will be more effective with that because you can now measure learning effectiveness. So you're going to be able to understand if learners are reaching their goals and which of the courses are really allowing them to master those different skills according to that job. It's going to measure learner engagement as well, because learners are leaving a trace of data behind it. And it's easier for you to go back into those statistics and those analytics and see which courses are going to are really allowing learners to master their skills, as well as assessments. And definitely it will improve the user experience because it's more seamless. It is intuitive for the users. It's something that it is talking to them, as well as it will help you determine knowledge gaps, which is the most important part, because a learner won't be engaged with content if they cannot understand something. There's something missing in there. And the way that AI will also help you is identifying their weaknesses, their strengths. And in these areas of opportunity, that is where we are going to focus on. That is going to be our main point and where our efforts are going to be going to. We don't need to, for our learners to keep on practicing what they have already mastered. So these are just some of the benefits. And if we want to continue to go into that next level engagement, I would also suggest doing some expanded engagement approach, which is implementing other tools. So for example, chatbots, doing virtual assistants, automated essay scoring evaluation, Alexa voice control. So all of this are going to make for the learners a more friendlier navigation through your training programs. And it will give them that feeling that they are being assisted whenever they need it. They are not being supervised, but they're being assisted. So now I want to move on and talk about sustainability. Sustainability will allow us to grow into that future ready workforce that we're looking for. Since we have been talking about emotionally engaging and a student-centered approach, that is why we're putting the learner's needs and interests in here in the middle. Because in here, we really need to understand the way that learners are learning. And let's think about it, that it is not going to be linear. Learning is not linear, it is more in a complex way. So you're adding more levels of complexity every single time. So around this, I would say that there are four main factors, which is going to be learning experiences. It is going to be as well the part of having the skills, personalized and flexible learning, and social learning, because this will allow you to close all of the gaps and really make your training programs talk to your learners' interests. Why learning experiences? And this is my way of saying as well, personalized learning, because we have to make these pathways also around job titles and goals. It's not only about what we think that they need. It is going to really be about the skills that our learners need for them to really master a path and to get the job title that they're looking for. And another thing, and I think that this is the most important, why should we map it to skills, to job titles? Because this is the gap that we're actually missing. This is the link that we have been missing. Organizations must map skills to their job titles, because that way you can go to a granular level and see why users, our learners, are underperforming. And this way, we're going to also be able to measure and track really the progress of the learners. Because if you let them go through a course where you have many different topics, and you might think that they're going through that, but that is not really showing you if learners are really mastering that skill. And if really learners are applying them, and if it's going into that detail level. So I think that this part of having skills with the learning experiences will also allow you to have a true flexible learning, because it is going to be goal-oriented, which is important as an organization, as a manager, and as an employee. But as well, we're bringing in that part of social learning that will give you that mentoring approach to learning. Let us go in a little bit deep into this items over here. So over here, I would say that training experiences have to be transformative. Why transformative? Because as a learner, if you don't think that you'll get something out of the training, you won't be really engaged into that. So you have to offer some value, some added value, because as well, learners want to win something for themselves. And this is going to be as well with a learning pathway. I mean, there's even a statistic that I want to share with you, which is this was led by American Society for Training and Development, and they did a survey to 2,500 companies, and they discovered that those companies with comprehensive training programs, meaning that it is more personalized, they have 218% higher revenue per employee and 24% higher profit margins. It is a lot. Those are huge numbers. So I definitely suggest that we really need to think about how we can transform our training paths, our learning paths, so that we really offer a value for the learners. And right now, and that is a great question. We have in the chat a question from Mike. So Mike is saying, what is your recommendation for reducing and increasing social an emotional conversational gap as a result of ILP? How do you reduce that isolation? And that is a great question, because the first thing that we should understand about ILPs is that it is not assuming the position of a user. ILP is an assistant for learning, but we can also have this social learning elements, because it is important that human approach, not feeling isolated. And the social learning component is also in there in the ILPs, in these other platforms, because we have those social learning components, such as we have discussion forums, debates, as well. What about the part of giving value to what your learners are sharing in terms of content, having them as part of the repository, and actually giving a voice to them, valuing what they're doing? So I think that definitely that gap for them not to feel isolated can also be designed in the courses. And we can have as well different groups as well, collaboration groups, because that is an important thing. Mike, I can definitely hear you. I think that teamwork is one of the most important skills in any job. So moving forward, I'd also like to talk about the skills. And this is more about engaging the learner. This is the part where I've been mentioning how really competency-based training will allow you to understand what are the areas of improvement for our learners. So imagine that we have a job title, marketing specialist, that it is tied to different skills. With this, we can measure how much the learner has mastered in these different skills. So we can say, okay, maybe this user, this learner that we have over here, I can see that it is struggling a little bit about the part of designing a logo. So the skills part will allow you to identify these areas for your learners, and therefore the platform will allow to make suggestions accordingly. So this is going to be one of those elements. And the part of re-engaging the learner, this is the part about being not hesitant to changes. This is about giving autonomy to our users as well, because think about it, when you are forced or you have to comply with certain things, sometimes that is not going to be something that you like. You're going to be more hesitant about it. Think about just a change in something in your organization. When they change something, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. You're going to be hesitant about accepting or adapting to it, because you're not having that freedom as well of selecting. So in this platform, what would happen if a learner could select job titles or competency banks that they really want to make sure that they master in the future? Think about it. What would be your selection? Would you select another job title? Perhaps if you're a salesman and you want to become that sales manager, it is something that you are really motivated, that you are committing to. So this is going to allow you as well to keep your learner engaged, because as I was mentioning before, it's not like, okay, now I know it all. The learning is not going to be linear. Learning is going to continue always. We will never end our learning journey. So re-engaging the learner, it will allow them, it will be done thanks to giving them a little bit of freedom to select. Because you know what, if I know that I need to master X, Y, and Z skills, I will be very committed if those will get me into the next position. It will get me a promotion, or perhaps I will get now a certification that will help me moving forward. Again, a little bit into the flexible learning, and this I'm not getting tired of mentioning how what we really want to do is to make it automated for the learners. And we can really get a highly personalized and flexible experience. So imagine a learning path, a pathway in which you can start the experience since the moment the learner comes into the platform. What if you started out with a survey that reactivates not only previous knowledge, but as well asks them what are their interests? It really will allow you to get them to have that cognitive engagement, but that emotional engagement as well, because they are feeling heard. So if you start thinking about having an automated way in which learners can go through a seamless path where you're having perhaps a survey, then they have this discussion forum or a debate where they can communicate with other learners. That is just fantastic for them, because then you will allow them to have a holistic learning. This is the part as well of social learning that I really think it's very important to consider. Self-paced learning is awesome, but we can also even add it into those self-paced courses. We can have that part available too. So for social learning, it's not only just opening channels. We have to engage them. We have as well to make sure that they have a purpose again. And we have to provide opportunities for them as well, for learners, to be able to create training materials. And the most exciting thing that I really like about ILPs, what if they are suggesting me to participate or to talk with a subject matter expert? What if I have that opportunity and I can reach out and I can say, hey, give me some professional suggestions. Hey, what are some materials that you would suggest? So these are some of the items that we have available in here. And I think that really the future of e-learning is going to be that of making it very student-centered, that it is going to be something available for everyone. This is not about making programs just in ILPs just for some big companies. No, we wanted to make it available to all businesses. That is going to be the future of e-learning, accessible to all. It's not only about giving mobility, giving users the ability and the chance to go in and utilize their phones. It's also about giving access to the organizations to use all of these different tools. I think as well that the future of e-learning will be also shown in the way that it will provide integrations with the smart technologies. But again, if we do not have a purpose on how we're going to integrate those smart technologies, it's going to just make it overwhelming for the learner. Make sure that when we are planning or even curating our programs, to really think about it from the learner's perspective. Center your learner, and from there start planning everything. And as well, we're going to be talking about AR, VR, and it is going to give them more interaction, because then you also have those learners that you're really tired of technology. So giving them different opportunities, giving them a different wide array of different authoring tools will also help them continue their progress and their learning journey as it is desired. Additionally, we'll also have as well the Alexa voice controlled, so that it gives as well more accessibility to the users, and as well more types of recommendations such as not only about courses, not only about just being added to groups, but as well to learners, to resources, even to other items that they're out there that we can use as training materials. So with that, I want to close it mentioning how training right now and getting the future of e-learning right should be considering a 360 training around the learner, around what they really need and what they are interested in learning, because that way we will actually be talking to their to not only what it is motivating to them, but as well to their heart, to their mind. I think that if we really want to make sure that we're delivering highly effective and efficient training programs, we have to step back and really put our learners in the middle of it and plan about it, but really utilizing those skills, mapping them so that we can really understand what is it that learners need to learn. So thank you very much for joining. We have a question. I'm going to open the microphone for questions as well. So Jeannie Martin, hi Alexia, thank you for a really interesting webinar. My cue is, as a voice actor and working on many learning modules, how do you see the future for using voiceover in e-learning? Well, Jeannie, I really think that it is something that we're going to continue to utilize a lot, because the thing is that, yes, we have some automated voiceovers, but that is not something that it is real, that it is humane, that it is something that it is going to be used. And as well, there's something that with technology, we haven't been able to figure it out really. And that is the part of having those different understandings. We get really lost in translation as well. And that is the part that humans, we can do, as humans, we can do. So definitely, I think that it is something that we will still be needing in the future. And as well, it is going to be a tool or a service that we're going to also be using, I don't think not only in videos, but as well, even with virtual reality, augmented reality. So I think that there's also an opportunity for that. Thank you very much, Judy, for that question. Any other questions?
We have a few more minutes. There was something that came in prior to the session that maybe we could handle now. Where do I start if I want to start curating my content? It can be very overwhelming, right? Like, where do you start?
Definitely, I can completely understand that. And I think that really we have to start by mapping out our job titles, doing a blueprint of the different job titles that we have available in our organization, and understanding the skills associated to those job titles. Once we have that, we can now map them to their courses, and that will also let you know if those contents are really efficient, if they're really thought about making it will really empower your users to master those skills. I'm sure that you will see that some of those contents or some of those assessments really are not relevant. And that is the best way to really go through what you already have, because definitely this is not something that I'm telling you to start from scratch. This is something that you can go back and you can utilize what you already have.
Okay. I think we've got time. Let me look at the clock. Maybe one more question. I didn't see anything else come in Q&A, but there was another one early on. What are the main features, if you were to pick just certain features, that I should have in my learning paths? Because you talked a lot about a lot of different things, but if you were maybe just to to pick some main features for your learning paths?
Definitely. So I would say that it's definitely doing a competency-based learning approach, gamification. And I'm not sure if I call it a feature, micro-learning, because it's really more about the instructional design approach that you are having in your courses, meaning making sure that it is consistent, that it is relevant. And yeah, I think that also having your courses gamified, that you are awarding, that you are recognizing the learner's progress. So I'd say those three are like the top features.
Okay, well, we are just at about time here. I didn't see any other questions coming in. So Alexia, if you'd like to have the final close out, and then I'll give it back to me, and I'll do an official closeout as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you everyone for joining me today. It was a pleasure. And thank you as well, Melissa, for having me. And I hope that you all have enjoyed the webinar.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Alexia and CYPHER Learning. And also there's a free ebook. Excuse my typo there, not ebook, but ebook, that accompanies this webinar today and all the fabulous information that Alexia provided in this presentation. This is a free ebook that you can find it on the eLearningindustry.com. I've posted posted that for you in chat if you'd like to go to that now. It will also be associated with the recording. The session was recorded and will be made available to everyone. If you're registered, you'll receive a follow-up email. However, if you don't find that email or you miss that email, please know that it can be found on the eLearningindustry.com under webinars. So thank you, Alexia. Thank you, CYPHER Learning. And thanks to all of you for joining us live today. I know it was getting late for some of you. And we look forward to seeing you in future events. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your day or evening wherever you are in the world. Thank you.